Hello, everyone. Welcome to AG Triathlon, the podcast dedicated to telling the amazing stories behind top age grouper performances in long distance triathlon. Today, I have with me Isaac DIAZ. Hi, Isaac. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello. Pleasure to be here, Adam.
No, the pleasure is all mine. So, Isaac, a couple of weeks ago, you finished second in Oceanside 70.3. Congratulations on a fantastic race. Of course, we had Justin a couple of days ago on the show as well, talking about that race. So really excited to hear about your race as well. So without any further ado, tell us about your race.
Perfect. All right. Well, let's see. So start of the race. Waves were pretty crazy. The gun goes off. I'm about sixth wave, I think, fifth wave, and I knew I needed to get in a front pack if I wanted to have a good race. So sprint, the first 500, 600 yards were probably the hardest part of the race, I think, for me. I don't even know how long it was, but yeah, it was a blur, man. It was a blur. So I see out of the break, I see John. I think it was John. He was moving pretty fast, so I sprinted up and just stayed behind the feet for him. And yeah, it was mainly just pure flow at that moment. I mean, he was moving. He was on a mission. And to try to overtake him, it would have been a lot of energy. So I literally just stayed behind his feet and I drafted him for literally the whole race. But yeah, the swim was my heart rate. I think it was really low, like 120, 130. That's what my watch said. Who knows? But yeah, it was pretty low key. And I think about 1,000 yards in, we caught Justin. So Justin was pretty close, I think, but it wasn't until like 1,000 yards in where like John and him were like neck to neck, and then I was just riding their draft. So I was just like in between, behind, just literally chilling. And yeah, so we're swimming. It was fun, man. It was just taking it all in, breathing deeply. We get out the water, and yeah, I'm behind John and Justin. And yeah, it's just low key on the transition, not trying to spike the heart rate too much, just get the blood flowing. I get on the bike, and yeah, transitions are still kind of a work in progress for me. This is my second Ironman distance, half Ironman distance I've done, so I'm still kind of dial in my transitions. But yeah, I get on the bike. I have on my nutrition, no issues getting on the bike. And putting on my shoes actually was a little tough, but that's still a work in progress. And then rounding the corner, a good friend of mine, Lauren, who's actually Justin's coach right now, she tells me I'm third place. So I'm like, okay, this is good. I just gotta stay calm, put the work in. So the bike is good. The power was pretty good. It was saying like, well, I looked at my Strava. It said 300 watt average at the end of the Oceanside, which is actually pretty interesting. I'll talk a little more in that later. But in terms of nutrition, I aim for 90 grams of carbs per hour. I used CarboPro, which is, back in my swimmer days, was like my nutrition of choice. I highly recommend CarboPro. Let's see what else. I used eFuel gels as well, which is 35 grams of carbs, which is really good. Has electrolytes, amino acids, all the stuff that you need. And yeah, the bike was good. This was my as I said, it's my second half Ironman, so kind of like getting used to the aero position was big for me. Like before the race, just getting used to that position and dialing it in and being comfortable. And yeah, it was good. Around 30 miles in, it was my teammate Angel and two others, Eric Engel, and I don't know the other dude's name. I couldn't find it, but we were just together taking turns. Like I would pass on the uphills because I train in a pretty hilly area, so I'm pretty good with climbing. And then I would get passed on the descents and the technical parts. But yeah, we were just a pack. Obviously not drafting, but yeah, it was good. And yeah, let's see. We get into the transition. Angel, Eric, and the other dude, who I don't know his name still. And yeah, transition. I take an electrolyte shot from what's it called? Trace Minerals. Really good stuff. It's just pure electrolytes, minerals, all the stuff that you need. Really avoids any cramps. And I'm neck on neck with that dude that I don't know his name. And I'll say why I don't know his name later. But first mile, literally look at my watch, it's 5:15. Like we went at 5:15 the first mile, and my coach was like, before the race, like, dude, just go 5:40. Don't kill yourself. Just keep it steady. Don't destroy yourself. So I looked at my watch, slowed down. He kept going, and later on, that came to bite him because I passed him, I think, in mile 9. He just blew up, I think, because he was going ham that first part. And yeah, in terms of nutrition during the run, I had 2 Morden, the caffeinated one. So that was my first time I had caffeine in the race. Not my first time ever, but like I didn't have any caffeine in the race until that run. So that helped me out a lot. It gave me that extra boost I needed. And yeah, the run felt steady. Aerobic threshold for most of the run. Around mile 12, a good friend of mine, Sebastian, he told me, I think it was Miguel, he was third at the spot. He's like, you need to pass this guy because that's your position to get to third. And yeah, I put in the work, passed him. And yeah, I feel like we should note this, but Jean actually realistically got second. I got third, but Jean got disqualified because there is a segment on that course which if you pass 25 miles an hour, you get DQ'd, and they're very strict about it. So Jean got DQ'd. So
were you aware that you were in that zone? Like, was it well marked, or was it easy to miss?
It's pretty well marked. I think the issue is that we were with the pro woman in the field, and they have a speed limit of 35 miles per hour. So I think he might have gotten confused because literally Heather Jackson passed by us, not by Jean, but like she passed by me, like blowing down the hill. I'm like, wait, what the heck? It's 25, but I found out they have a higher speed limit. And yeah.
Okay, that doesn't make too much sense, but fair enough, Ironman, if
I
that's
know.
what's up. Crazy, yeah. So you mentioned your nutrition a lot, both on the run and on the bike. Clearly, you have it really dialed in. So 2 questions here. How do you come up with your nutrition strategy? And then how do you train it to then on race day not be trying new things, but to come with something that you have already tested?
Right. So my coach, Matt Hurley, from Wild Endurance, before the race, he just chatted me and said, you need to do 90 grams of carbs. And I practiced somewhat. I think Cover Pro is really nice in that it doesn't taste like anything. So I put 4 scoops in my water bottle, which already has 100 grams of carbs, and it doesn't taste like anything. So it's very easy to kind of have a good grams of carbs. And in order to train it, some of my long rides coming up to the race, I would do gels periodically, especially before the hard efforts. I usually don't like to take gels during my training because it does spike my blood sugar, and I like to stay in my fat burning mode because it does activate the sugar burning genes. So a lot of my training, I actually like to stay in my fat burning, and we'll talk about it later. Like, it also depends on your heart rate. If you're above a certain heart rate, you're going to go into more glucose burning versus a lower heart rate, which is more fat burning. So I like to stay in that fat burning, which I trained that. And then in race day, I put in the carbs, which is just rocket fuel.
Yeah. And just to jump back a bit to the beginning of the bike after the transition, Justin pointed out that he had a great transition and Jan ate a banana, and apparently you also lost him. So do you think that it would have mattered if you go out together with Justin out of T1?
I don't think so. So Justin is just a great biker. Like, he has the skills. And actually, that's something I learned from this race is I compared my power data to Justin's, and Justin had 290 watts of power, and I had 300 watts, and we're pretty similar weight. And my coach and I, and Lauren also, we were trying to piece the puzzle pieces together. And what we came down to is a big part of it is bike handling, especially in Oceanside. It's a very technical course. There's a lot of rolling hills, and being able to use your momentum to your advantage and being able to go fast on descents and translating that power to speed is key. So I think that's a huge key that I'm working on, is translating power into speed. Because, I mean, you can stay in the trainer all the time and not get anywhere.
What about your position on the bike? Because I guess that's another natural factor you would think about if you're putting out similar wattage but still losing 10 minutes on the bike, then you must
Yeah.
look at your position as well, right?
Yeah,
And
that's
then equipment. I think Justin was riding a disc wheel in the back. So do you think did you do any like postural studies or re-examine your position before the race or before the season started maybe?
yeah. I did do a bike fit around February, and I got the 51 speed shot bars around February, so I had about 2 months to really work on getting that position, but still, I don't feel I have enough time on the bike yet to really dial in that true aero position because it takes time on the bike. It really does. I didn't start really consistent bike training until August, I'd say, because before I was just focusing on running and I was still biking, but it wasn't consistent. So really, it just takes consistency on the bike, day by day, putting in and getting your back more flexible. Um, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And then the run. I mean, you had like a 1:15 half marathon, which is for me at least completely mind blowing. Yeah, so you mentioned that you were racing with this mysterious dude for 9 miles, or that you ended up passing him. And then when did you end up catching Miguel? Miguel is, by the way, from Miguel and Jenna, I think the YouTube
Yeah.
channel is, right?
Yeah, he's a cool dude. I talked to him after the race. Yeah,
Yeah, so
so I passed the mysterious dude. Well, no, sorry, I didn't pass. He passed me. Well, he how do you say?
dropped you.
Yeah, exactly. He dropped me around. I think it was like mile 2 or 3. And then for Miguel, I passed him. I think in mile 12. So literally right towards the end. Like at the end of the course was just straight. That's when I passed him, and it felt good. I wouldn't if my friend hadn't told me that he was the third place. I wouldn't because I didn't know. I didn't know he was in that. So it was good that my friend told me that. Yeah.
Nice. And then you finish the race thinking you're in third. When do you find out that you're actually second?
Yeah, I was having lunch with my parents, and I think it was on the group chat, like the Everyman Jack group chat, and there's like, oh, Jean got disqualified, and I was like, oh wait, is this a joke or not? And I guess my dad and me, we had a little like philosophical conversation, and like, is it really second place, or like deep down, I'm like, am I really second place or not? But I think rules are rules, and kind of just owning that, but yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And therefore you're qualified for the 70.3 Worlds. Maybe then tell us as well about the rest of your season. What are the upcoming races?
Yeah, so right now it's kind of I don't really have too many races planned, to be honest. I'm still working with my coach to see what to do, but for me, I love training. I think training is I train, honestly, like triathlon is like training for life for me. I think it trains me like mentally, physically, spiritually, everything, man. But I think I will possibly I'm thinking the San Diego International in June 22nd. I've played around with the idea of doing some marathons, half marathons. But yeah, honestly, the big race is October, the Worlds. I'm just putting a lot of work in the bike, getting that bike handling down, and ready to pop off in October. I mean, I feel there's so much potential. It really is just time on the bike, I think, for me. Just getting that bike dialed in.
Yeah, sounds like it. Sounds like it. Well, what I'm curious when I see a 1:15 run split in the age group category is how do you reach that? How do you train for that? Have you? I mean, you mentioned that you were a swimmer before.
Yeah.
Maybe give us a bit of background or your background in the sport that you have.
Yeah, of course. So I started as a swimmer age 8 or 7, and I was in the club team. Pretty intense training. I mean, mornings, afternoons, just discipline. And I credit a lot of my discipline to my swimmer days because all swimmers know is literally you just spend your lives in the pool. And you build that aerobic capacity, just breath holding capacity, all of that stuff. Around age 13 and I think it was 14, I started to, I guess, lose my feel for the water. It's weird, man, but in hindsight, I was just in my head too much, and lost my feel for the water, and it was really frustrating. Like every day, I started to fight the water. With the water in the pool, you have to be the water. You have to like conform yourself to it. And
you're quoting Lionel Sanders here.
Yeah, but it's so true though. It's so true. You got to be the water. So yeah, I fought it, and I just, literally for that whole year before I transitioned to cross country and track, I dreaded every practice because I knew how painful it was going to be, because I had to fight to stay with the group. And now I credit a lot of my fitness to that, because I really just pushed myself to the ground to try to keep up with my team in my last year of swim. So then I moved to cross country and track my junior and senior year of high school. And coming from a swimming background to a running background can be pretty tough, in the sense that your bones haven't really fully developed, your joints, all that. It takes time to really build that strength. So I did struggle with some injuries. My cross country, I got a stress fracture my junior year of track. But I loved running, man. Like running was just that passion of mine. And also just being in a group, I really feel like it's so primal, running with a pack, it really just brings joy, in my opinion. And yeah, so senior year of track was great. But unfortunately, I didn't get the times I needed to run in college. And that was a dream of mine. I wanted to run in college, but I went to UCLA, which is a D1 school. And I told that was my program in my head, is like, I'm not fast enough. I can't do it. And I didn't try, I look back, I gave up. I didn't try it. And I went to school at UCLA, and I studied chemistry. I was in the UCLA club triathlon team. And I was off and on. I was not consistent. My first year I was somewhat consistent, but really I was just focusing on my studies. But those 4 years was really just kind of occasionally bike. I was still running for fitness, for mental health. I was doing a lot of lifting. It was honestly good though, because I think in those college years, you can burn yourself out by not getting enough sleep and then training hard. And I think we see that a lot in college athletes, where they have to perform highly, but they're not getting this rest and sleep that they need, and they burn themselves to the ground. So I'm kind of glad I had that time to really just focus on my studies and develop my mind in a way. And then COVID-22 hit, so I was a 22 graduate. So COVID hit, and actually in that senior year of college, I guess fitness started calling me back again. It was, it's a deep inner feeling where like I felt potential within. I felt that there was something I wanted to show. I feel like I haven't reached what I wanted to reach yet. So I started running again, and I remember the workout clearly. I think it was 8-mile repeats with my club triathlon team, and the coach at the time was like, you should go back to triathlon. And I struggled with that decision. It's like, I don't know. And I made the decision, and I started consistently training again, and I fell in love with the sport again. Like, that passion came back. And COVID hit, nationals got canceled, but I stayed home and I continued running. I continued training. No swimming because the pools were closed. And yeah, at the time, I was really just focusing on inner work, a lot of meditation, and I'll talk about this later, but breath work. I think breath work is really key for improving sports performance. And yeah, okay. And then, yes, okay. So I started a job, I think it was 2020, and I was working there for some time. It was nanoparticle work. I was synthesizing these nanoparticles, but still within, I felt like there's something I need to do, not do, but express my passion. So I think it was about 6 months in, I put my leave notice and I moved to Boulder, and literally left the job behind. And I just wanted to focus my time on learning endurance sports it was my passion, learning endurance sports and learning about physiology, like how breathing affects your mental state, cold exposure, all of that. And that's where I met my current coach, actually, Matt, and I trained with Lauren. She went to the Olympic trials at that time, so I was basically her training partner for that, which was really awesome. And we were training under Coach Tinman. I don't know if you've heard of Tinman, Coach. He's a really great running coach. And I think I really do attribute a lot of my running success now to that focus in Boulder, where I really just focused on running and got coached by him. And I learned a lot of really valuable things. I did a 50-mile endurance run, I think it was in July, and that really just opened up my eyes to endurance, just how powerful it can be to, it's not just performance, it's mind expanding in a way. If that's your intention, it really just betters you as a human being. And yeah, I moved back to San Diego around October, so right actually the week before Oceanside 2021, and have been living here, and I started my new job in January. So I moved back to the full-time job. So I was part-time for a while. I moved back to full-time, and for me, it's now just triathlon is training of the mind, training of the spirit, all of that. Yeah, I don't know if that answered this. I feel like I got into a rant, but yeah.
Yeah, no. That's perfect. And actually, what comes out of what you're saying is that you fusion a lot the physical effort, right, with the spiritual side of things. So yeah, tell us a bit more about how you think of it on a spiritual level. Like, express that a bit.
Yeah. So when I think of endurance sports, there's the performance aspect and there's also the health aspect. And for me, when you're healthy, that feeling within it's spiritual in a sense. It's really hard to describe because I don't want to get into dogma or all of that, but I really do think health is the greatest wealth. That's my philosophy. And when I look at triathlon, it's not just about reaching high performances, but it's balancing that high performance with health. And that's currently my passion in being able to learn through scientific means and how can I optimize my body to be healthy and high performance. And yeah, I mean, when you feel that limit, I guess in the spiritual side aspect, I learned this in my ultra endurance run when I did the 50 miles, is when you think you have a limit, there's more. You can always find something within yourself. And I think when you find that limit and you push past, you grow as a human being. And I think it's important to, as human beings, to feel that discomfort and be okay with it and grow through it. Because if not, you're stagnant. And I think that's the nature of the universe, is growth in a way.
Yeah, so that's an interesting point, right? Because this is some things that I experienced by myself. As triathletes, we can do a lot of hardcore stuff, right? But then you do get to the moment in the race where it just really hurts, right? And you have the option of pushing through or somewhat, stepping back a bit. And I find myself often stepping, like in my personal triathlon races, I feel myself stepping off a bit and never fully finding my full potential, which gets me real frustrated. Granted, I still have a lot of physical development to do as well, but what are the things that you tell yourself when you're really at that limit? Is there like a specific tool or a couple of sentences that help you really go into that, that beyond phase?
Yeah. So I do tell myself some things. So when I'm feeling that pain, I tell myself I'm capable. I can do this. And that's just mental wise, but I think there's also training. There's a lot of training I do outside of triathlon to get me to be able to push past that limit. One of them is cold exposure training. So I have a chest freezer in my garage, which can go from 32 to 40 degrees Fahrenheit. So I keep it usually around 40. And I think of that as willpower training. I mean, before I don't want to do it. It hurts. But I'm in it, and I feel great afterwards. So number one, I think the cold exposure is just willpower training. Number two, what I do is I do a lot of breath work. And I don't know if you're familiar with like apnea training. It's kind of what free divers do, where you hold your breath, and in those moments of like those max breath holds, there's a lot of resistance. You feel it, but it's kind of a meditation because you can push past it. And I guess I'll talk later on about it, but building your CO2 tolerance is important. Like if you don't have enough CO2 in your body, you can't release oxygen into your tissues. And that's a common thing that we see in endurance athletes is they are over breathing. And when you are over breathing, you're removing a lot of that CO2, and thus you're not oxygenating your tissues. You're not getting oxygen to your brain. So you can't think clearly, and you start to give up. Because when you can't think clearly, you can't like override, you can't override the pain signal. So I think a big part is really properly oxygenating your system through, number one, nose breathing, doing breath holds, optimizing your vascular system. Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually interesting because I had a friend in Australia. Actually, he taught me a lot about breathing exercises and techniques, and he used to do it while he was sitting in the car and things like that, and he told me that it's really a way to like increase your energy levels, and sometimes he said that he could almost pass out from it because he would overdo it. But it's really interesting what you're saying, right? That if you know how to handle this or how to manage your breathing, then actually it will lead you to perform better mentally, right?
Yes.
And make those decisions of, okay, I can do this, I can push through the pain, and then leave the race being content and satisfied with your result, as opposed to maybe taking your foot off the gas.
Right. Yes.
Super interesting, and what amuses me is this mixture that you have between spirituality and also science, right? I mean, you're a scientist, so to tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, so I think right now we are in the verge, because a lot of what the yogis taught in the past about like we are all one and quantum, like now we're starting to blend quantum mechanics with that. So I think we are in a really great spot because I think we can't explain spirituality in terms of, you can say woo-woo, because that shuts people off. I think science is the way to explain through quantum mechanics, through just understanding the nature of reality. I think that's really important. And for me, I think understanding the body is, in a sense, a spiritual quest. I mean, that's what the yogis did. They studied the body, and through breathing, altering your states of consciousness through breathing, all of that. And I guess for me, my body's my experiment. That's a big part of why I do triathlon, is I'm basically experimenting on my body and seeing what happens. I think it's just a curiosity. Yeah.
Do you think it gives you an extra edge over people like me, for example, who don't do this?
I do think it does. I really do think it does. I mean, the breath work is really, and that's also one thing I learned, not just spirituality or mentally wise, but sometimes the big limiting factors when I'm doing tempo runs is my breathing muscles get fatigued. Like if your breathing muscles get fatigued, you start to exert yourself. Like it's even though your legs are fine, if your breathing muscles get tired, you'll fall off. So really, also just strengthening your diaphragm and all of that is really, it's important, and it's often overlooked. People don't often train their breathing muscles. But it's really important.
So there are two types of breathing that I'm familiar with, right? The one that I think most of us are used to is breathing with your lungs, right? It's just a normal one, and then the other one is breathing from your stomach, almost, right?
Yes.
Is there like, are those the two major ones, or am I missing something?
No, you're correct. Yeah, so like
right.
You can breathe from your chest, and you can breathe from your diaphragm, and that's a common thing with this modern society. Is a lot of people are breathing from their chest, and you see the shoulders rising, all of that. But what we are finding now is that it actually activates your sympathetic nervous system, which is your fight or flight. A lot of stress, a lot of cortisol, and also breathing through your mouth can do that. But breathing through your nose and staying relaxed and breathing from your diaphragm actually activates your parasympathetic nervous system, which is your calming response. So a lot of it is really just being aware of your habitual breathing patterns, because it is a habit, and working more on your diaphragm, because doing more diaphragmatic breathing will improve your recovery times, like 100%.
So do you suggest to then try to use this diaphragm breathing while training or while resting, or both?
So I would try to. It's tough, but yeah, try to do diaphragm breathing during training. I actually just got a coach for breathing through the nose while doing all this. It's really interesting stuff. If you guys have a book I recommend is called Oxygen Advantage, and it talks all about the importance of breathing from your nose, and from your nose, your diaphragm, and how that affects your sports performance. It's really such a deep subject, but if you're interested, really, Oxygen Advantage explains it all. It's very interesting.
Yeah, that's a great reference, and I'll definitely look into that. But
Yeah.
I mean, I heard a lot about this diaphragm breathing, and I actually practiced it myself at some point, but I never really connected it to triathlon and especially that ability to then surpass yourself as well. So yeah, I guess really interesting stuff. And then tell me about your current job, because you said you started in January.
Yeah.
And also what I would love to hear is how do you balance triathlon with your work?
Yeah. So I started in January in a startup. It's called Plantable Foods. And basically the goal of the company is we grow a plant. We have 2 locations. We have a farm and a lab. In the farm, we're growing a plant called Lemna, which is one of the fastest growing plants in the world. It doesn't need soil. You can just grow in a controlled greenhouse, and they double in biomass every 48 hours. So it's a very fast growing plant. And what we're doing is we're processing this plant, and we're extracting a protein called rubisco, which is one of the most abundant proteins in the world, because it basically catalyzes CO2 into oxygen. It's the main enzyme for that. So we're extracting this protein called rubisco from the plant and making protein powder from it in a way. And it has a lot of interesting properties. The main one is it can gel. It can make these gel networks similar to egg white proteins, which is very, like, looking at the other plant-based proteins, they can't really do that. So this is really, really interesting stuff. And one of the material scientists in the lab was able to make actually fake meat from it, and I tried it, and it's really interesting texture. It's kind of like, I don't even know if I can talk about it, but it's really interesting. It doesn't taste good right now, because I think there's a lot of more work that needs to be done, but the texture is very meat-like. And we can also do gluten-free options, so we've been doing a lot of gluten-free applications. So I honestly have a lot of passion towards this job, because I feel it can help the humanity in a good way, because the way we're going, food is going to be a scarce resource, and growing these plants in an indoor setting, without soil, is huge. And now, I guess, to talk about how I balance life with triathlon, that's been, honestly, it's been a struggle when I first started, because moving from part-time to full-time job, it really does, it's a big change, But I've been learning a lot, and I think that's why triathlon is so beautiful, is that it teaches you discipline. You have to be disciplined, and that's why it teaches you in life, because if you're not disciplined, you're not going to perform in triathlon at a high level. So really I wake up in the mornings, usually most likely a bike, sometimes a run, sometimes a swim, go to work, and then come back, and usually another session, bike, run, swim. I've been starting to add more strength training this week, but usually it's about 16 to 18 hours a week. And yeah, prioritizing sleep, recovery, nutrition is really important. but yeah, it's been a journey, and I know I still have a lot to work on in improving my habits to streamline.
Yeah. So I have to say, so coming back to your work, that hits quite close to home to me, because I'm a vegan, and yeah, I mean, one of the reasons, if not the main reason I went vegan, was the environmental impact of the meat industry, especially
Yeah.
that it's having on the planet. So yeah, I hope that your company really succeeds and you guys develop something really cool.
Yeah.
And then one question I would have, you mentioned nutrition, right? That it's super important. But when I'm working my 9 to 5 job, 9 to 6 job, and then I also have my second training done, and I get out of the pool at 9 p.m., then all I feel like having is a big vegan burger or whatever, right? How do you manage? Like, do you do, I don't know, like, do you cook for a week ahead on the weekends, or what is your tip that you would have for triathletes that are struggling to balance nutrition with everything else?
So I would say a big one is the food that you make the night before, make enough so you can eat that for lunch as well. I'm still working on nutrition, to be honest. That's a big work of mine too. A lot of times I go to a sandwich shop for lunch. It's a vegan sandwich, so I like it. It's good. But ideally, I do want to start cooking from home more. But yeah, I definitely more work needs to be done for me on terms of nutrition.
Sure. So I guess it's also something that you're figuring out, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, for sure.
it's definitely a key topic, and unfortunately today I find myself eating a bit of junk food, which I find myself saying, well, okay, I worked out all day, so what bad will it do to me? But
Yeah,
I think it does have an impact.
yeah,
So yeah, definitely something to look into. Great. So Isaac, was great chatting with you.
yeah.
Loved learning about everything that you're doing, professionally, personally, in the sport, spiritually. You sound like a super cool guy, so I hope we can meet in person sometime.
Maybe in the race, that'll be awesome, man.
Yeah, well, I would probably be a bit further back in the race than yourself, so I wouldn't say we would meet at the race, but yeah, definitely. And best of luck for the rest of the season. Of course, with 70.3 Worlds being the key, we will be rooting for you from Europe, and I hope everyone that watches this video has learned something. So yeah, best of luck, and
Thank you
thanks
so
for being
much.
on the podcast.
Thank you.